Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday webinar. My name is Justin Brooks, Safety Advisor for the SCSA, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's webinar. I just want to take just a moment to discuss a few items before we get going. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Facebook and our YouTube channel. So again, if you're not following our social media accounts, make sure that after the webinar, you give this video a like and a share, and follow our pages to keep up to date on safety in Saskatchewan. So I do have a presentation that we're going to be doing today on fall protection and a fall protection survey that was conducted by WorkSafe. But before I get into all that, I just wanted to take a moment to let our other advisor here, the one and only Mike, to introduce himself. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Moore, formerly known and currently known as the one and only Mike Moore. And I'm a safety advisor out of Saskatoon. And I take care of Lloydminster, Battleford, Meadow Lake, all that. Contact information is on our website if you need to contact me out of those regions. And I'm glad to be here today, Justin.
And it's funny that you are now officially going as the one and only Mike Moore when there's a very famous film director or a documentary maker, Mike Moore. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So
yeah, that's me.
Yeah. There's a couple Mike Moores out there, but you're the best one, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No problem. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen here, and we will get motoring along here. So before we talk about fall protection harnesses today, I wanted to take a moment to briefly speak about focus groups and industry interviews conducted by FAST Consulting and WorkSafe SAS. Failing to wear fall protection is one of the top contraventions in the construction industry. According to WCB data analysis of serious injuries claims, 14% of all claims are due to falls. This is beyond all rate codes. And 23% of serious injuries are due to falls. Again, all rate codes. Rate code B12, so this is residential construction. And this is important to know because we're going to be referencing this throughout this this document here that we're reviewing. It is about residential construction. Has more injuries that are serious in nature. 3% of all overall claims and 5% of serious injury claims are from that rate code. WorkSafe Saskatchewan's intention behind this focus group was to find out what drives the industry to use fall protection equipment and those that don't, so that we can help make a safer work environment for all involved. So the title of this entire document is Focus Groups and Industry Interviews, Fall Protection Measures Among B12 Residential Construction Companies. We're going to go through this this entire document. It's a 16-page document, and I'm going to tell you where to find it coming up here by the end of this part of the presentation, because there is a survey that we are conducting at the SCSA that revolves around this document that was created by WorkSafe SAS. So moving forward. So in May and June 2019, FAST Consulting conducted a series of focus group sessions and one-on-one in-depth interviews with supervisors and workers in smaller residential construction companies in Saskatchewan, as well as stakeholders in the construction industry. The purpose of the discussions was to determine barriers using fall protection in the workplace, specifically the residential construction industry. They explored whether there is a correlation between fall protection plans, supervision, and training. These research findings are intended to inform the Saskatchewan Workers' Compensation Board's operational strategies and marketing plans for 2019. So the facilitation guide, designed in collaboration with WCB, covers, so these are all the topics that this covers, is are workers receiving proper training on fall protection? And proper training is defined as a course that has both a theory and practical component. And just kind of pause there, just so that everybody knows, actually it's happening today, and every Wednesday we're having our online instructor-led fall protection course. So that covers both theory and practical components. So just so that you're in the loop of where to get some of the best training during COVID-19, when a lot of facilities are shut down, we're definitely one of the better sources for that. The next one up is, are workers on the job site recognizing the hazard correctly? And do they understand when they are to wear fall protection? So do they know they're working at a height where fall protection is required to address a hazard? Is there a specific work environment, situation, or task that makes it difficult to wear fall protection? What challenges do supervisors have to get their crew to wear fall protection? Are supervisors aware of their role as a supervisor when it comes to fall protection or just generally workplace safety? Are supervisors receiving training regarding their role? To the best of their knowledge, whose responsibility is it to make sure that fall protection is worn? Qualitative feedback from focus groups, it can't be extrapolated, but discussion results can provide insights into what behind survey numbers and data analytics. So failing to wear fall protection is one of the top contraventions, as we discussed before, in the construction industry. And the big thing, and to reiterate that point, is that 14% of all claims are due to falls beyond all rate codes. So this becomes a very important discussion point when talking about safety and protective equipment. So this is how they kind of figured out their sample. So the focus group participants, they were randomly recruited, screened, and qualified from sample lists of B12 construction companies provided by WCB, as well as from general commercial listings. This ensured a representative cross-section of various types of participants working with smaller residential construction companies. Standard industry practice for participants in focus group discussions to receive an honorarium in appreciation of their participation. So 2 focus group sessions were held in Saskatoon to collect input from B12 rate code residential construction companies. 1 session was held with 5 supervisors, the others with 6 workers. Because there was not enough rural residential construction companies in any particular region to convene a discussion, input from this cohort was collected through one-on-one interviews. This was also done to collect input from Regina participants. 10 in-depth interviews. This was also done to collect, 10 in-depth interviews was conducted among these sectors. One-on-one interviews were also conducted with 5 stakeholders, including SCSA board members. So each focus group or interview began with a general introduction and explanation about the process, including the idea that discussions were exploratory. There are no right or wrong answers, just opinions, perceptions, and what each person thinks based on their own experiences. The importance of individual opinions and frank discussions, even if it is different than what others in the room are saying. And assurance of participation, confidentiality. The opinions are aggregated, not attributed to individuals. The names of participants are not shared or attached to a written summary. So when we talk about the discussion results, which is coming up here. So according to the focus group participants, at least some fall prevention measures are adhered to the majority of all residential construction sites most of the time. It's actually some good news. These measures can take a variety of forms, including setting up control zones, netting, guardrails, or having workers wear personal fall arrest or travel limiting systems. The majority of supervisors and workers generally feel safe. Many actually say very safe when working on residential construction sites. Job sites are generally kept clean and assessed for safety issues and assurance that OH&S standards are being adhered to prior to getting jobs underway. Some supervisors who have worked in both industrial and residential construction, however, suggest that the larger commercial or industrial construction companies emphasize stricter adherence to safety procedures and practices than do residential construction companies. Although most companies adhere to safety standards, the perception is that small residential companies who seem to be less likely to have fall prevention measures in place on their work sites. About half the supervisors, workers, and stakeholders have seen or personally been involved in a workplace accident at a residential construction site that involved falling. These typically lead to some type of injury, in one case, a fall left to a worker fatality. Workplace accidents that involve falling from height are almost always talked about in terms of a quick task that needed to be completed, or workers being distracted either by losing track of where they are as a result of being immersed in a task, or by talking with a homeowner or tradesperson while working. So before we get into the results of these discussions, I just wanted to share a quick disclaimer with you that this study was conducted by WorkSafe Saskatchewan and Fast Consulting. The outcomes of this survey are not the opinion of the SCSA, but are the results of a focus group comprised of supervisors and workers from the B12 construction industry in Saskatchewan. I'm just going to leave this up for a few seconds just to make sure everybody has a good read of this. All right, so we're going to move forward. So these were a lot of the issues that workers within the B12 and supervisors, all that were involved in the study found with the reasons of not wearing fall protection. So the first one is time pressure. Time pressure is one reason that fall prevention measures are not used. There's a notion that it takes too much time to put measures in place, such as setting up control zones, guardrails, or netting, or that wearing personal fall arrest or travel limiting systems is too constrictive and slows workers down. The motivation for saving time is to save money by working more efficiently. Residential construction contractors are often under pressures in the compressed building season to finish jobs quickly so they can start others. Or they may be behind on jobs or have multiple projects underway simultaneously, and they're juggling employees and resources between job sites. Time pressures can also be apparent among subcontractors on construction sites. The current soft economy in Saskatchewan means it's a buyer's market for construction companies, which leads to pressure on these companies to be extremely competitive with quotes. There is a cost to companies for fall prevention, including purchasing safety equipment, making time to set up control zones, and install and maintain fall prevention measures. So, for example, netting to catch falling tools or materials from height. And the extra time it takes workers to complete work tasks using fall prevention equipment. The next one is small tasks. Fall prevention is sometimes, some participants even say often, not used when fulfillment of small task at height is required. Rather than ensuring prevention measures are in place through proper planning prior to doing a small, quick, or seemingly innocuous task, workers will do it without safety precautions. This behavior can occur with all workers, even if they do not do it regularly, and most suggest they do not. Most also admit they have done without safety precautions at one time or another. Another contributing factor is confidence in their experience, skills, and common sense, which makes them think they can complete a task without the risk of injury from falling. So confidence and ability, which comes with experience, and competence can actually cut both ways, and in some cases, lead to unsafe behavior. Common situation where unsafe behavior at heights is more likely to occur is when workers are finishing up small tasks when using protection measures takes up more time than the actual work. For example, rather than spending the significant time it would take to install fall protection on a roof, a worker who has only spent a few minutes working on a vent as part of a plumbing job might forego safety measures. The next one they found by conducting this survey with the B12 companies was that they feel it's safer without protection. Feedback from supervisors and workers suggests a perception that it is safer to do some jobs at height without putting fall prevention measures in place. This generally refers to wearing personal fall arrest or travel limiting systems. On new homes, there are tie-off hooks on trusses for fall arrest systems. On homes being renovated, however, these anchors must be installed by workers who free climb to the anchor plant without tie-off protection. In some situations, this is considered more of a risk than doing the task or job they need to do on the roof without the fall protection. It is evident in the discussions that supervisors are sometimes challenged with this situation as well. Some workers and supervisors also express concerns about tripping on the many ropes when travel limiting systems are used by several workers. Trip hazards from fall arrest systems are particularly challenging for framers working within trusses and can pose a hazard in themselves. Tangle hazards can be exacerbated by cords from power tools. Some companies use retractable lines to reduce tangle issues, but some workers think the tension they put on the line slows them down. Participants also mention issues with tie-off points that are not properly installed, take the weight of the fall, or have rust that is not visible under cladding. The next one they found during the survey was they felt the height is not significant enough. According to discussion participants, fall protection measures are now regularly used at residential construction sites when work is at a significant height or involves working on steeply sloped roofs. However, falls from heights can happen in ways inexperienced supervisors and workers may not expect, including from ground floors into basements. One participant described a fall from a low step ladder that nonetheless led to a significant injury. There are also frequent descriptions of working on low grade roofs, while this low slope is not considered enough to warrant fall protection. Framers and roofers who are already resistant to using fall protection because they think it slows them down may be less likely to use measures in these types of situations. Some discussion participants suggest that ensuring fall protection measures are in place as part of a company's safety culture. Supervisors talk about seeing roofing or painting employees wearing shorts instead of long pants and sandals instead of boots, both of which can lead to injury in the event of a fall or dropping a heavy object on the foot. They are not working to OH&S standards, and participants suggest that relaxed attitudes regarding such things can spill over to workers being less vigilant about prevention measures from falling from heights.
Justin,
Go ahead.
sorry to jump in here. Man, you got the wrong guy doing this with you, because I want to talk about every single one of these slides. This height not significant enough. I don't want to convolute the presentation, that data from WCB and this and the thing, but it doesn't mean we can't talk, I don't think, about these points. I remember not long ago hearing about a company or an individual in Saskatoon that on an 8-foot roof. So, these bungalows in the older neighborhoods and stuff like that, where, the edge of the roof's at 8 feet and they're working up there, and an individual actually had fallen off the roof, and in that process, I think they fell in such a way that they ended up losing their life. You don't have to fall, and there's numerous examples off of from lower heights than necessarily the legal minimum, that people get seriously injured from some of these falls, or from even, like we were talking about, doing a short task on a roof. We got to look, like, if that short task, if you, for example, in my shop here, I have the electrical mast that goes and brings my line over from the pole into my shop. It's right in a location where if they were up there just bringing some wire into the mast or whatever, doing a short duration job up on the roof, or tying up a cable or whatever, and they would fall right on the top of my fence. So there's a lot of significant things with the questions that were asked in this study. So that's really interesting. I'm finding this incredibly interesting, some of the memories and the stories I think of when we're talking about these common pitfalls.
Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. This is a really, really good study to read through, because even as advisors, we've all had these conversations with our members before, and sometimes these things come up, right? And the good news is, although many people share, some of the discussion points, they have a correlation between them. Everybody knows that they should be wearing it, right? So regardless of, and we can call it an excuse or a reason or what have you, everybody knows they should be wearing it, not just more like, the law, because it's the law, but on a moral basis, right? Whether it's, setting a good example or because they have children and family, and, everybody knows they should be wearing it. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what makes this study so great, is that they really discuss, and I think people from every rate code can really, even though it was all taken that WorkSafe decided that they would go with the residential, is because that's the highest level of people not following the law when it comes to wearing fall protection. Regardless of that fact, you see it beyond all rate codes and all industries, a lot of the same feelings when it comes to using fall protection.
Well, and complacency is an easy thing to set in. You have an individual that has a certain amount of experience in construction, and that can be 20, 30 years. But they have their own experience in the construction industry with their own crews and stuff like that. And they may not have ever seen someone get hurt from a fall. So, because that could be possible. They may have known other people. So when you have that going on, you have these complacency issues setting in, then it's really nice. Like OH&S really gathers a lot of data, either it's through their investigations of incidents where people were seriously injured, or it's through inspections when they're out on site doing inspections and stuff. They see a lot of these common problems that are happening, and that, so it's a really good idea to, like, the study, to get feedback from industry to find out, like, what's the problem in this area? What is an issue in this area? And get some honest answers, so that possibly, like, there is a ways to qualify, why are these a requirement, right? Because people have some of these points that industry has are legit points. They're, I'm just going to be up there for a short duration. I'm just, it's not exactly over 10 feet. It's, these are all talking points, but it doesn't necessarily mean that in the end, if you fall, that you're going to be in a good position or that you won't fall. Like like not tying off because you're up there a short duration. I've talked about a lot of people that have seen people fall off roofs or that whatever, and a lot of them are walking off the roof. They literally are taking a step backwards to admire the row of shingles they just put on or whatever, to take a look at something. And I've never heard, and it doesn't mean it's not happening, but of people tripping over their rope and then falling and then having a serious injury because if they were tied off properly, that's going to catch them anyway and stuff. But what I do hear is people actually literally walking off roofs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why these prevention methods are put in place. And that's why they're the law, because enough people have been hurt that they made a law about it, right? So as these safety measures, come into effect, there's obviously some kickback, but, we're at a point now where, the law is the law, and regardless of the reasons why, we should be following it. But nonetheless, so it's important to understand why people are pushing away from it, so that we can further help, ease them into wanting to creating that culture to using it. So, so let's keep moving forward, Mike, because the next part actually is what you kind of just briefly talked about there when you had mentioned enforcement. So when it comes to enforcement, most supervisors and workers suggest that fall protection is enforced at residential construction sites most of the time. They typically illustrate with examples of guardrails and travel limiting systems. Many suggest that supervisors are enforcing fall protection on small residential construction sites more than ever before. So this is a good thing. Residential construction companies building in new neighborhoods are easier for OH&S officials to spot and are significantly more likely to receive a visit as a result. This is especially true if there's work being done at height, as these sites can be spotted from a distance as inspectors are driving. These companies are also likely to say their employees understand and always use fall prevention measures. However, prevention measures are not necessarily perceived as being regularly enforced through inspections and audits by safety organizations. Most participants suggest the residential construction companies have fewer eyes on them than the large commercial companies. Participants believe that while visits from OH&S serve to increase compliance with fall protection measures from falling from heights, OH&S cannot possibly be visible all the time. Visible at all residential construction sites all the time. Small residential building sites that have high visibility, usually because they involve new builds and new neighborhoods, are more likely to receive visits from OH&S inspectors. Residential contractors building or renovating homes in established neighborhoods are less visible and much less likely to receive visits from OH&S. Renovations occurring indoors are even less visible and therefore even less likely to receive safety visits and inspections. Some small residential construction companies do not have supervisors to oversee compliance with fall protection measures. Others have supervisors, but not on all construction sites. Some work sites are started by a supervisor in the morning who then moves on to other job sites. There is a perception among some of the residential construction companies that painting contractors may be less likely than other contractors to enforce fall protection. Some supervisors do not have enough training or experience to appreciate the nuance of situations where the need for fall protection measures is less obvious and therefore less likely to enforce putting measures in place. Some supervisors, particularly less experienced ones, may also receive pushback or resistance from workers who are reluctant to step up or wear personal fall arrest systems. So during this focus group, most participants believe that supervisors and workers generally recognize when fall protection measures are required. This is especially true of larger residential construction companies. But it's also clear from the discussions that there are many situations on residential construction sites where it is less clear if, and just as importantly, when, fall protection measures are required. In these situations, knowledge about various forms of fall protection is not always apparent, nor is planning evident about the types of fall protection required for different situations. This planning is typically part of walkarounds done prior to getting a project underway. Most of the supervisors and many of the workers in the discussions have received training on fall protection. This includes ladder, scissor lift, and fall safety, and their role in fall prevention. Much of the training referenced from OH&S or the SCSA. Almost all safety training has both theory and practical components in both those programs. Several residential companies say that all their employees receive safety training. Many reference a Certificate of Recognition, CORE designation, which is an occupational health and safety designation verifying that a company has a fully implemented health and safety management system that meets a national standard. The goal of the SCSA is to make CORE certification a pre-bid qualification for buyers of construction in Saskatchewan. The rationale is that qualifying a residential construction company this way gives the company a decided advantage over those not CORE certified. But some supervisors are concerned that companies without CORE certification can offer lower price bids, which is attractive to homeowners who are naive about the implications of a company without CORE certification and possibly not as committed to accident prevention. The cost associated with all safety training is something to which construction companies, perhaps the smaller ones, appear to be resistant. Participation in the discussions believe that these companies need to understand and realize that safety does not take longer once workers and supervisors get used to it. Training can also help the place of experience, which can be important for smaller companies experiencing higher employee turnover and having to hire less experienced individuals in supervisory roles. The next one is responsibility. Residential construction company owners and developers, followed by foremen and site supervisors, are considered responsible for ensuring that fall protection measures are part of residential construction job sites. Some indicate responsibility begins with the prime contractor, then subtrade contractors. Stakeholders are more aware that supervisors are legislated by law with responsibility regarding work site safety. However, many discussion participants, including workers, suggest that fall protection measures are a shared responsibility of everyone on the job site, including workers. There are suggestions that fall protection needs to be communicated two ways, from workers to site supervisors and company owners, and from owners to foremen and workers. Although most are, not all discussion participants are confident that all residential construction company supervisors and foremen recognize or are aware of their legal responsibilities when it comes to fall protection and workplace safety. Awareness of responsibility in this respect is generally an outcome of safety training. There is also uncertainty that there are many instances of residential construction sites that do not have a supervisor or foreman on the site. Stakeholders suggest that this also varies by companies and those residential construction companies with a longer view and good leadership around establishing a culture of safety, and that empowering workers to do the right thing will benefit them in the long run. Although the majority of residential construction companies and their workers routinely have fall prevention measures at their place of construction sites, there are situations where it's not used. The challenge is the perception that planning, installing, and using fall protection measures and slows workers down, which translates into additional costs for the company and homeowner. Speed is a primary driver of profits for residential construction companies. Homeowners are sensitive to both price and time. There is a consensus among participants that operating safely with prevention measures in place is more costly for homeowners, and they will resist higher costs and bids. This combines with the attitude among some more experienced workers that they are competent enough and comfortable enough to be working at heights that they do not need fall protection. Wearing fall arrest or travel limiting systems is relatively new, so within the last decade or two, in the residential construction industry. This leads to an old school mentality among some of the more seasoned workers who consider it cumbersome, uncomfortable, and unnecessary if they're working carefully. Younger workers are generally more accepting of fall prevention measures than veteran builders and less likely to push back when supervisors insist they use them. Homes built close together present several challenges for residential construction companies, including preventing them from building protective slopes when digging basement foundations. There are also certain transition stages in home construction where the walls or stairs are being built or assembled before guardrails or other forms of fall protection can be safely installed. Some participants during this focus group suggest that challenges can be addressed by planning ahead. They also point out that planning ahead, envisioning potential fall hazards, and addressing them with preventative measures is often an outcome of safety training. The last one here is encourage the use of PPE. So many participants suggest that one of the most effective ways to encourage more workers to regularly use fall protection measures at residential construction sites would be to consistently make it a job requirement with little tolerance for non-compliance and termination of supervisors and workers who do not follow the protocol. Contractors should be vigilant about establishing and maintaining a culture of safety in the residential construction companies, including fall protection, and they should not hesitate to warn workers of safety violations. Continued training from SCSA would also provide a clear understanding of the requirement for fall protection measures. This would help ensure workers understand the various situations at residential construction sites where protection measures are required. Training is particularly critical for newer, less experienced supervisors and workers who lack the ability to assess unsafe situations at residential construction sites or how to mitigate them with fall protection measures. The discussions including some proponents of requiring core certification as a minimum standard for construction companies to receive a license to operate. Making sure fall protection gear is always on site would encourage workers to use it. Significant fines from OH&S also serve as an effective deterrence for residential companies not in compliance with the requirement to have fall protection in place at their sites. On the other side of the deterrence, financial incentives from WCB in the form of rebates for companies with injury-free workplaces can also serve to encourage the consistent use of fall protection. So this document, after reviewing it, the SCSA has developed a survey to gather feedback from SCSA members on their study that was conducted by WorkSafe to use information from the survey to improve injury prevention offerings of the SCSA and WorkSafe partnership. So this is where it comes up to you guys. Your feedback will directly contribute to new initiatives in injury prevention. This survey gives our members an opportunity to answer questions like, how can falls be prevented in the construction industry? What would you like the SCSA and WorkSafe to know about this study? And which recommendations from this study will have the strongest impact on reducing injuries from falls? So to complete this survey, you can find the link in our August issue of the SCSA e-newsletter. The best way to find that is if you go to our website, go under News, Publications, and then SCSA e-newsletter. You can sign up for our e-newsletter, and then you can also review all the past editions of the newsletter. And I believe it was in last month's edition, so in August. So the entire study, so now everything that we've gone over with this focus group study, this was all from that one document. So the reason we kind of went through this way was so that this went through 95% of the verbiage that was in this document, in this 16-page document. So it's good to still go through that document and then complete the survey. This is a big help and a big initiative that's been taken on to better understand how we can be of more assistance to our members when it comes to wearing fall protection gear. So I hope that everybody takes a few minutes to fill out that survey. Again, you can find that at our website, scsaonline.ca. Go to the top in News, then Publications in the scroll down menu, and then SCSA e-newsletter is where you'll find it. So now that we've gone through that, I have a few slides on fall protection harnesses. Then we're going to kind of open up the floodgates here, and Mike and myself will talk about some things from the survey or fall protection harnesses and fitting and stuff like that. So, all right, so what is a harness? A body harness means straps that secure secure the employee in a manner to distribute the fall arrest forces over the thighs, pelvis, waist, chest, and shoulders with the means of attaching the harness to other components of a personal fall protection system. So when you require one, in the regulations, it states that in 116.2 of the regulations, an employer contractor shall ensure that workers use a fall protection system at a temporary or permanent work area where A, a worker may fall 3 meters or more, so that's 10 feet, or B, there's a possibility of injury if a worker falls less than 3 meters. So just like we were talking about in the survey where they feel the height's not significant enough, right in the legislation it states in 116.2b, if there's a possibility of injury if a worker falls less than 3 meters. This means that once you hit the 3 meter mark with no possibility of injury if you were to fall less than that height, you're required to have a fall protection system. One part of a fall protection system is a full body harness. Now, during a our online instructor, or our instructor-led online fall protection course, we don't supply the harnesses. And one of the things that keeps coming up class after class after class is harnesses not actually fitting the participants of the class. So I wanted to take a few minutes to go over how some of the largest retailers of harnesses go through their sizing and why it's so important to have the right size of harness. So choosing the right size of harness is a very important safety factor for fall protection. Fall protection harnesses are the last line of defense for millions of construction workers in situations where fall hazards cannot be completely eliminated. It's not like choosing the right t-shirt size. Just because you wear an extra large shirt doesn't mean you need an extra large harness, or even a large harness for that matter. For instance, a 6 foot, 210 pound person probably wears an extra large shirt, but a medium-sized harness is usually the right choice. Also, take into account if you've been wearing thicker clothing underneath, which in some cases, you most likely might want to look at the next size up. There's a possibility of that if you're right on the edge. So let's take a look at some of the more popular manufacturers' sizing charts to help you gain a better understanding of how to find the correct size based on your weight and height. So the first one that we show here is 3M. Now, where this is different than a lot of other brands is their universal size covers everything, right from that small, medium, large, extra large. And you can see where that weight limit, at 4'7", 309 pounds, 310 pounds is where that, if you were 4'7", that's where you would require that XL. And you can see as it kind of crescendos up, where you would line up if you were requiring an extra large harness. So, if you were 6'6" and 300 pounds, you're going to need that double XL harness. But if you're 6'6" and if you follow the lineup and say you're 250 pounds, you only require that universal size harness. So before you buy the harness, whenever you go to your supplier, not everybody is comfortable with their height and weight, but this comes down to a safety factor where you need to choose the right harness. Whether you do that on your own or you ask a representative for assistance, you need to make sure that you're fitted with the right size harness. So 3M, from what I found, has the largest gap between the small and the double XL.
Yeah, so Justin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just run back to that universal slide, please, with the 3M.
Sure.
So that 3M, can you imagine the difference between a 4'7" human being at 88 pounds? That was me at 24 years old or something. But that compared to 4'7" at 300 pounds, like the adjustment of the straps must be just, if you're in that smaller range on a universal harness with the 3M, this is good information prior to buying a harness, is saying, okay, what kind of harnesses do we use in our business, or what kind of, even maybe in the startup of a business or getting harnesses? Because typically what I recommend anyway to companies is buy the same make. You can get different models of harnesses and stuff like that, but try to find a make that you're happy with for the harnesses, and then your inspections are going to be similar or the same for all of your harnesses. But on a universal size like this, if you're a shorter person and a very lightweight, the amount of excess strap that you're going to have on these harnesses, you got to deal with that somehow, hey, because of the universal, like this harness being able to accommodate a 4'7" person at 300 pounds. That's a lot of strapping you're going to need to be able to go around a human being like that compared to an 88-pound person. So something like this, depending on, it's probably better to go and try it on, like be in person, try it on, actually snug it up, fit it up before you go and buy 10 harnesses for your company, because you buy this one universal harness and you can say, put it in the tool crib, and then everyone can go just grab a harness from the tool crib. It may actually, there may be some negative impacts, may not, but there may be, and it's worth taking a look before you purchase a whole bunch of them for sure.
Yeah, and just like it was in the last slide, when you've got, you go from, I've been in a lot of instances, I worked in the commercial construction industry for about 10 years before starting to work at the SCSA. And there was lots of times I was using fall protection outside, and then, you get a call from the ground, hey, we need you inside on the mezzanine. So you come inside, you strip off all your minus, 350 million degree coveralls and your hoodie and everything. And then you're putting the fall protection harness back on. And then you've got to adjust it. So this may be, in some instances, for a company that has someone that's 4'7" and someone that's 6'10", you're hiring horse riders and horse racer riders and basketball players. Whereas you might feel more comfortable in a harness like this if you're constantly moving from area to area, you work all year round, you need something that has a good amount of adjustment. Me being 5'10" is what I tell everybody, 5'9" is what I am actually. This might be a little bit easier for me to get those adjustment areas that I need.
I thought you were 6 feet.
Yeah, well, that's what my Facebook profile says, just not my license.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because I look up to you, Justin. Aw.
Oh, that's sweet. You're sweet for saying so.
So I'll actually show that example. If we have time, I'm going to show the example of having insulated coveralls with the harness on, and then I'll just strip those coveralls off and show the actual adjustment needed when you take something like that off.
Yeah, we'll make sure that there's time at the end of this. I'll get through these last few slides here, and we'll make sure, because that's a good talking point that people should see physically that put into practice. So I think I got 5 manufacturers here to quickly run through just to give kind of people a visual. So now you can see from the last slide where there was just this small XL and then double XL was the only change up. When you look at the SALA, you look at right from, that same kind of area, that 85 pounds, 4'10", all the way up to 6'8", 420 pounds. But you can see the increments, there's a lot of crossover between the height and weight ratios. So this is why it's so important, as you can see, where, someone like myself running in at 5'10" or 5'9", whatever you want to say, and we move over to, I'm around 185 pounds, that medium is going to be perfect for me. Right. So, but I mean, if I were to lose, it wasn't too long ago that, I was about 156 pounds, and my height hadn't changed. I'd be looking into that small harness right on the edge of wearing that small harness. Right. So people, like you said, Mike, trying these on, going into there and actually putting one on before you buy, it's not the worst idea. So when we look at the Guardian, again, this follows the same kind of area. The one difference is here being the medium large. The medium large, you can see they leave a little bit extra for adjustment with that size, just because that's your kind of most common size, right? Then we move into the Protecta, which has a very similar system as the SALA. They started around that 100-pound mark, and then they kind of you can see at the top here when you get to the double XL how it kind of moves from being 6'8" at that height because of the length of your body and the size at, say, 340 pounds if you follow that lineup, and then it actually dips down in height that like you can't be to wear their form of harness if you're running in at 380 to 400 pounds and you're above that 6'4" mark. You might have to look into a different manufacturer that can make up the difference for those strap lengths.
And another thing besides strap lengths, Justin, is going to be the actual rating for the harness for weight. Some of these might actually have a maximum weight rating that you could even get into the harness. Maybe you're at the max height and max weight of that harness kind of thing, but you're a little bit over the max weight, but you can still get the harness on. So maybe you could still get it on because you hold your weight in your ankles. Like, I don't know where you're getting all this weight from, but you put it on, it still fits you. You can put it on and it's a false sense of security, and you go through a fall, man, and you got straps ripping. Like, that's not going to be a fun situation. And it's just really a false sense of security if you're not looking at the labels.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that a lot with people, like very, very muscular individuals,
like
that have a lot of, that have a lot of compact muscle tissue, coming in at 5'8", 5'9", whatever I am, just keep getting shorter. All the
Yeah, exactly. Just get honest.
Mickey Rooney before you know it. You know, someone that has a lot of dense muscle tissue that runs in at, you know, 5'8" or 5'7", whatever, but all of a sudden they're, you know, 260 pounds because they're just, you know, a really, really large individual and pack on a lot of muscle tissue. They might have to look into a different retailer or different brand because, yeah, they might be under the height, over the weight. It might be a weird place to be. It's generally not the case, but it's really important to really look into these and figure out what is exactly going to work for you. This next one here is actually interesting because they go by the Safeways actually has a belting system with theirs, right? So they have a very large belt strap, waist strap that goes around with the legs and shoulder straps and everything. They do sell ones without belts, but they also take into account that, you know, your waist size as well as your height and your weight, because they have the belt. So you know, sometimes you might go in and you might be like, yep, give me that one. I like the green color of that harness. This is how tall I am and everything. And if you just order it or whatever, you don't realize that there's a specific belt size, you might be in some trouble.
Actually, if you want to just exit the PowerPoint for a sec, we'll come into the shop here for a second. I want to show you a harness that actually has, I have to get this thing on correctly. It actually has a belt system in it. Can you see me, Justin?
1 sec. I'm trying to figure out why there we go. Stop share. Here we go. There we are.
Thanks. So here's a harness. Now I'm wearing insulated coveralls, so I fit a little bigger than I actually am underneath. But when I try to put the belt on this system, this is a belt right in here, and this is actually a harness that I could use. I believe it would be used for like window washing or something that I can actually have a seat integrated into it. This is an XL harness. Now, this belt, I put it on as tight as I can get it, and I still have a lot of room in here. I'm not going to be able to get these done up properly. Like this is going to have to be in like this. It's going to be very ill-fitted. Now, can I use it? Sure. Can I fall in it? That's the question. If I go through a fall, what's the level of protection I'm going to get? How's it going to fit? Is this strap going to end up around my neck? Am I going to end up with a groin injury because the straps around my legs don't fit my huge 180-pound legs, you know, on an extra large harness? So, and look at all this strap I got to deal with. So I have a lot of problems actually wearing with the belt system, not fitting, with all that. The issue comes in I would say in complacency or the devil's in the details with all fall pro, right? It's always the details that are going to get you. So I'm sitting up there and I can sit nice in this harness and it just happens to be hanging up like this, right? And I'm sitting in it and I'm washing my windows or, you know, doing whatever, some glazing or something. And it isn't until I fall that I really realize the impacts of having the improper harness on, right? So, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to
yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, this goes without saying that this is one of the very important things that sometimes gets overlooked when it comes to picking out your harness and wearing your harness. So I will continue from the current slide here. So moving forward, then this is the Miller Honeywell. So they talk about their most popular universal size, and it runs by the same standard again, right? So you can see how everybody's got kind of a different way of showing how their stuff fits, but they all kind of are in that same kind of area of where they move up in sizes. But again, some have right from extra small to triple XL, just like the Honeywell here. The 3M has like one universal size and then double XL, whereas this one goes right up to triple XL at 400 pounds, 6'6", right? So that's why it's so important to really research these sizes and know exactly where you and your employees land. So when it comes to comfort and fit affect the safety and use of harness, influencing compliance. Fall protection equipment is difficult to don and hard to adjust. It won't be used. With comfort in mind, workers use several different types of harnesses but the majority prefer full body harnesses with stretchable webbing that allows them to flex and bend. A full body harness includes hardware, webbing, and pads with specific functions. Hardware must be sturdy but not oversized and awkward. At the same time, hardwood should be easily attached to connecting devices. For example, the back D-rings on some harnesses are so small that hooking a lanyard is a tricky process. Harness hardware must be smooth because it can pose a hazard if it has sharp edges that cut into harness webbing or dig into the skin in the event of a fall. Hardware construction is an important feature, specifically in friction buckles. If friction buckles are not spring-loaded, they can easily begin to loosen once the harness has been adjusted to fit properly. Also, be aware of the hardware with exposed springs, especially on friction buckles. These can be easily disabled or dislocated. Webbing varies drastically from brand to brand. Look for sturdy webbing with tightly woven yarn that slides through hardware without snagging. Once webbing is cut, burned, frayed, etc., the harness must be taken out of service. When choosing webbing, keep in mind that it should meet the standards of 5,000 pounds of tensile strength. So it has to meet the minimum CSA standards. Stitching should have enough strength that it does not rip away during a fall, and the webbing should endure traditional abrasion tests without fraying and puckering. Since webbing will be used in the sun, heat and moisture over extended periods of time, it should resist natural weather effects. Similarly, in electrical environments, webbing must resist conductivity, and in harsh chemical environments, webbing must resist toxic chemical fumes and splashes. In other words, make sure you have the right harness for the jobs that you're doing. Padding should be pliable and easy to adjust to ensure a comfortable fit. Like webbing, padding must withstand harsh weather and maintain its shape. Some padding can become brittle in cold weather, so look for padding with breathable fabric and durable construction. So we're just going to talk a little bit about donning the harness. This is something that's extensively talked about and you're coached through the whole way when it comes to taking our instructor-led online fall protection course. But I'm just going to go through it as a reminder for those who have taken the course.
Let's, Justin, why don't we just come right to the shop and we'll just do it verbally?
Sure, yeah. No, that sounds fine. Let's do that.
Okay. Just for the sake of time. So I have on a harness here. We can go through the donning when I throw it back on and stuff. But I have a harness on here with my insulated coveralls that I desperately need to get out of because it's plus 22 in my shop. And these are rated for minus 100. There's a couple of things. So I put this harness on and I fitted it for me when I was wearing these insulated coveralls. Like you said, I was working outside. It was minus 30. I got to put these on. There's no way I'm going to be up on a roof in the wind or up at any heights in a wind on a man basket or something like that and not be wearing my insulated coveralls. So I put this on. And then, okay, I got to go inside, and there's numerous instances of this. I got to go inside and and I might as well get my harness. Well, I'm not going from minus 30 to plus 20 and not taking my insulated coveralls off unless that's just a quick job inside. So I take my harness off. I'll try to do this somewhat quickly as I sweat. It's important not to chuck your harness all over the place on the ground and the floor. You can get knots and stuff like that. So you can watch me undress. This is fantastic. So I've always wanted to do this live. So I get that off. Now I go grab my harness. Okay, let's get at her. Okay, quick. So I get my harness and I chuck it back on. Now, pray tell, could there be any problems with this? Issues with this? So I get this harness back on. Okay, let's talk about donning quickly. Because like you say, Justin, we do this in the course. Take your harness, hold it. You got to shake it out, kind of get the straps so I don't know how many times I teach Fall Pro and I go into a bin of harnesses that we have, our harnesses, and they're twisted up. There's knots in them. I can't figure out which way is up. So shake it out, check it out, make sure the webbing, you can do your inspection, your pre-use inspection now, which again, in the Fall Pro classes is gone through in depth. Put it over like a suit jacket kind of thing, like a power suit. Then take your straps, put it on. Like, this is the thing, that harness that I had on earlier that has the butt pad in it and all that stuff, you put it on different than this one. So I need internal training. Like, you can't just be handing people harnesses and saying, well, here's a harness, go use it. No, you should understand how that harness works, the limitations, how it's supposed to fit, all that stuff. So I went and put this harness back on, and I checked my straps. All of this is out. And look, I wanted to use an example here. Oh gosh, you can't see it really. I taped this before, because this is what happens. I see this lots. People don't have keepers. So here's an MSA removable keeper that you could buy to actually hold these straps so they're not loose. So you can actually buy them aftermarket if they had ripped off your harness and stuff like that. But a lot of people, what they do is they get their harness to fit, maybe in winter, and then they tape it up. The next thing you know, they're inside and they're working inside something, and they got to put their harness on without the insulated coveralls on or that, and they got all their straps taped up. And how you readjust it now, right? So they were setting themselves up for that. So those keepers, those removable keepers that you can purchase, are a much better option. Now, if you look at this strap, look how much loose. Now, I probably, with my insulated coveralls on, probably could have went a little tighter, but a lot of times in winter, even with insulated coveralls, I'm wearing 2 pairs of pants. That's just how it goes for me. I have sweatpants and then jeans on, and then my insulated coveralls. So this legit could be how much difference I have in that. Now, if I go through a fall like this, and we don't show the videos in class anymore or any of that stuff, but this strap gets both straps on one side and I go through a fall, that strap wants to come over here. And you can imagine the damage that can do to a man or a female in that instance. So the fit is so important. Where do I put the chest strap? All that stuff. And it starts at, do I even have the right harness? And like we were talking about with our fall protection course, it's recognized now that we're using actually people's harnesses that they use in industry. So we're not using our example harnesses like I'm wearing today, where they're actually using these and they're going to take Fall Pro. So they bring their own harness. We're noticing that between 1 and I think that they said like 1 in 5 people out of 15 people have harnesses that actually don't fit them. So they're starting off in the wrong foot. They're starting off in an area where maybe this is as tight as they can actually get the harness, you know, or they're so maladjusted that if they did go through a fall, it's not adjusted properly for their body. Therefore, again, back to false sense of security. The devil is in the details with all of this stuff. So you may be wearing it, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to be seriously injured. Now, wearing it properly will reduce your likelihood of serious injury so much.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's not just in the class. We see it on site.
Yeah.
You know, pre-COVID, when we were still going on to sites and doing site visits, you would walk onto sites all the time, and they'd be following every other thing. They got their hard hats on, they got glasses on, they're wearing gloves, they've got safety barriers and everything, and they're tied off to the machine. And then you look, and they can almost trip over their leg straps because they're so loose. They're not wearing it properly. And I just tell them, well, what if you were to fall? You know, and I know, right? So this all goes back to, you know, the training, making sure that you have the right harness that fits before you take the training that's suited to you. So it's good to go through those guides, request from your employer, or look into the model and try and find that sizing guide. And if it doesn't fit, go back to your employer and say, hey, look, this isn't even rated for me. I need one that is going to fit me properly. And you know, it's something that we've noticed a lot during our training, and I hope it's something that we push forward with having people bring their own harnesses if they can, because this is something that's really important once they hit the job site.
Yeah, and a lot of it's not for a lack of trying. Like some of it is blatant, like, oh yeah, your leg straps, you could step right out of it without even taking your harness off. Yeah, like that's just not trying. But a lot of it's they're trying, and it's just like I say, they're missing on certain aspects of it that you're gonna get caught by your biggest gap. And if your biggest gap is something, and you could be trying your best in all avenues, but you still have a gap, that gap may bite you. And that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to say, look at the details of what you're actually doing. It's not just taking a Fall Pro course, having a harness and a lanyard on, tying off, and you're good to go. Because if you tie off to a rope that's too long and you still hit the ground, what were you doing? Like, and some people may not be able to put these things together. Maybe that's a bad example for trying, but not executing. But there is a lot of examples of they're trying, and it's just not, they're just not looking deep enough into it.
For sure. Absolutely. So that's our hour. So again, thank you very much, Mike, for participating in the webinar. And I'd also like to thank everyone here that's watching. By watching and participating in these discussions, we're all working together in making Saskatchewan the safest construction environment in Canada. So make sure you guys tune in next week for Toolbox Tuesday. And I also want to remind you that at the same time, same day next week, we'll also have another webinar. Another reminder is that everyone will have these, all our webinar presentations cut down and available on our YouTube channels. These are a great resource for training and toolbox talks, especially if, like us, you're doing your meetings online. So remember again to like and share this video. Follow us on all social media platforms. Have a great day, everyone. Work safe.